When Arizona needs to know, Arizona turns to Channel 12 News.
Thanks for staying up later. I'm Bob Costas. We're joined from Los Angeles tonight by Bruce Dern, and I guess you'd be the first guy to admit it, despite the wide variety of roles you've played, many of them critically acclaimed, the first thing people think of when they hear Bruce Dern's name or when they see you is, that's the guy who plays all the psychotics.
Right.
Fair?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Are you troubled by it, or something you'd like to shake, or are you resigned to it at this point?
Well, it's too late to shake it. I mean, you know, it's... People have always... I've always felt that audiences in America become enamored or disenamored of actors the way they first perceive them in a big medium. I was first perceived through television, through playing psychotic, bent, tortured, driven guys in little episodes of Alfred Hitchcock or Gunsmoke or Big Valley or whatever it was. And somehow it followed me to the screen in movies. And early in my movie career as starring in movies, I killed John Wayne in The Cowboys. There he goes again, doing the same thing.
The only guy ever, in however many films Wayne made, only guy ever to kill him on screen, right?
Then I suddenly realized, you know, I can't keep doing this because all they offered me was evil people. And so I got away from it for a while with, a bunch of movies like Gatsby and The Laughing Policeman and Smile and Posse and The King of Marvin Gardens and Drive, he said, and different movies like that. And then suddenly they came to me with Black Sunday. And I said, well, I don't know, a lot of football fans in America, you know, the guy that takes the blimp and tries to blow up the Super Bowl, not going to be real popular. They said, no, you got to do it, you got to do it. So I did it, and there I was again, you know. And then I stopped for a while after that.
What was the line John Wayne had to you when the script called for you to blow him away?
Oh, well, the day that we shot the scene, he had never had squids put on him before. Squids are like little bullet hits that actors have to have strapped on them that a prop man over there or effects man is going to set off. So you have no control over when the bullet hit is going to go off. He'd never had that done to him before. And he was a little nervous, and we started the day of the shooting with the actual shooting. And he looked at me, and he'd just done this article in Playboy where Playboy featured him as the monthly guest, in which he was very outrageous in his dialogue about the brothers in America and a lot of other people in America, but particularly he was down on folks. And he said, ooh, he said to me, just as we got ready to pull the trigger in the scene where he would get shot, he says, oh, how they're going to hate you for this. Oh, I said, maybe, but in Berkeley, I'll be a hero. This was 1972, so it meant something then. And then 2 weeks later, he went to Harvard to receive that award that they give for the worst actor,
right?
and drove in a tank. He went in a tank down the main street of Harvard to accept that Hasty Pudding Award for being the worst performance of the year.
What was the first time Hitchcock ever used you? He was particularly fond of you, I'm told.
Yeah, we got along very well. I did a movie called Marnie in 1963, and then in Family Plot, which was his last film, then I was in that also, which was 12 years later.
Had he used you in the TV show before that?
Yeah, and I did an episode. He didn't direct it, but he cast me in it, and he produced it, you know. It was and there I played a psychotic. It's interesting because the first time he used me in in Marnie, I play a little sailor who the mother brings home, and I try to comfort the little girl, and the little girl and the mother end up thinking I'm trying to do something, little girl, and beat me to death with a fire poker. In the TV episode, which I did like a year later, I played this terrifying psychotic peach picker who was hired by Teresa Wright and Pat Buttram to help them pick their peaches and end up turning around and trying to kill them, and they finally destroy me. Then 12 years later, he hires me in Family Plot, which is kind of a comedy, to be a sweet, young, out-of-work cab driver, you know, who was the good guy. And he saw a whole evolution, you know, knock wood, if he could have lived a few more years, I might not have had to play so many bad guys again, you know.
Hitchcock was notorious for having disdain for actors in general. And in a quote about you, he made a little twist on his own line that all actors are cattle. He said, some actors may be cattle, but if that's the case, then Dern is the golden calf.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did. He was very, very nice to me. He was, you know, he was an interesting guy in that, first of all, everybody thinks he was like this little penguin guy. He was a huge man. I mean, because everything was like this. He appeared to be small, but he was a very big man. And when he sit in a chair or something, as he would all day, when we worked, he'd sit down in front of the camera at 9 o'clock. He wouldn't get up until 2. He'd come back at 3:15, and we'd shoot till 8, and he'd never move, so he was there all day. And he wanted to be entertained. His gift was that he enjoyed being entertained. He had the greatest setups in the world. In other words, when he designed a shot, he knew the shot worked. All he wanted you to do was fill the shot with entertainment, be the character and be entertaining. There was no strict dimension to the dialogue or anything. He wanted you to tell the story entertainingly. And he was a great entertainer himself, so we got on well. I made a point when I went to work on Family Plot to seek him out every day, to force him into a relationship with me, because otherwise he'd just shut himself off, you know. And
because he was shy, or because that was his technique? Because
everybody around him felt he was an institution, and they stayed away from the institution. You know, they were so enamored of it. And he just wanted to be one of the guys. And whenever you would come on to him, I mean, he would sit. I remember when we were doing Family Plot, it was when this guy Stonehouse, who was an MP in England, who faked his disappearance in Australia and ended up with a secretary down the beach. He faked his death and everything, and there was a lot of things involved, and it was like the big headlines in the world. And I said, "What's that all about?" He said, "One word, Bruce." I said, "What's that?" "Money." That's all about. Everything always related to money to him. He was just like really kind of a unique. He was a one-of-a-kinder. I mean, he was a one-of-a-kinder, you know.
I was intrigued to learn, reading through the research, that Jack Nicholson once said that you were his only rival. What do you mean by that, do you suppose?
Well, I don't know, because he can't run 800 meters, I'll tell you that. I mean, I don't know. I read one time where he had said that. I think, I'm sure he meant, you know, we started out at the same time, and we were in a lot of films together when neither one of us had very big parts. And he wrote a movie I was in called The Trip. He directed a movie I did called Drive, he said, which was like one of the 5 or 6 sports movies that I've done. We were good friends. He's a wonderful actor. I think I'm a wonderful actor, so I guess he felt, I don't know, acting's not a competition. I don't really know why he would have said that, but...
You've done 5 or 6 sports movies, and I could see just in the break we were bantering back and forth, and you've got a lot of sports knowledge. Is it coincidence that you've done that many sports films, the roles just happen to be there, or are you drawn to them?
No, I was, the only one I was drawn to was a movie called On the Edge, which is a running movie that I did, which was out a couple of years ago, and that was the only one that was really kind of zeroed in for me to do and prepared for me. The others, oddly enough, only 2 of them were movies that a sport was in. Number One, which was a movie I did with Charlton Heston years ago, where he played, it was the first year the Saints were in existence, and we traveled with them for 8 weeks and made a movie about, he was an old quarterback, and Billy Kilmer played him, and I was a retired flanker in a car business trying to get him to quit.
I remember.
And Danny Abramowitz played me. And I did it, you know, he did the football stuff, and I did the human being stuff.
Now that I think of it, like that championship season, there are really no sports scenes.
No.
It's about the reuniting of a high school championship
Black Sunday
team.
certainly wasn't about sports, but it involved the Super Bowl. They Shoot Horses, Don't They wasn't really about a sport, but marathon dancing required, that's an interesting trivia question. Who holds the world record for the longest time on their feet consecutively without sitting down in the dance marathons?
Is it a sports figure, a guy who later went on to...
but it's a guy who became a very famous singer in show business. He was on his feet 73 days and 6 hours.
It has to be Vic Damone.
Close. Frankie Lane.
So it wasn't that far off?
No, it's good. Frankie Lane.
Is that right?
73 days.
Movies like They Shoot Horses, Don't They, when Pollock cast you in that movie, or even playing Tom Buchanan in The Great Gatsby, which was not well received critically, but your performance was, all those things were important for you to move away from the psychotics, to show that you could play other people. Had that become almost an obsession with you at that point?
Well, once I realized that I was not in just an art form, and I was also in a business, it became essential to the people that represented me and myself that we move into an area where I could get much more flexibility in being cast, and people just wouldn't see me. So in order to do that, you have to find parts that people can eventually see, to see that you can do other things, because they slot everybody. Everybody gets put in a slot.
Continues in a moment.